Sheri Campbell with Transcend the Gap, revolutionizing outcomes from inside. Today, I'm here with Wendy Rose Williams, the author of Regression Healing 1. Wendy, I'm so excited to have you here today for this interview on Regression Healing 1, which is your first book. It's my understanding that you're an independent author. Share with us who you are.
Well, thanks, Sheri. Thanks so much for having me here. It's a great opportunity to chat with you today. And who I am, I'm a past life adventure guide. What that means is I get the privilege of helping people release energy and heal energy that doesn't serve them anymore. Because we often have things just stuck in our subconscious that are causing anxiety, depression, PTSD, trauma, pain. And once we're able to bubble that up to the surface consciously, we're able to release it and move into a lot more joy in life and better health and happier relationships and feel that we can embrace our life purpose and know what that life purpose is.
So what led you to this path?
What led me to this path in 2010, I had been divorced for quite a few years. I was at the point where I was ready to meet someone wonderful and new. Through that process of meeting a gentleman, he introduced me to past life regression. He recommended the book Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. The minute I read that book, it was like the amazing stories you hear of, oh my gosh, the earth moved and life just changed in an instant. And I knew from reading Journey of Souls that I wanted to have my own past life regression. And within a few short years, because that process was so amazing for me and I went on to have more sessions, I trained and became a hypnotherapist specializing in past life regression myself, just to be able to offer this healing and this release to other people. And it can come about rapidly. People can see a real change in even one session.
How do you see what you do as a past life regressionist, assisting people who are coming online spiritually, awakening themselves?
I love helping people to be able to relax and realize, oh my gosh, there's this bigger picture. It really was wonderful for me once I was able to align with my higher self and hear my guides and being able to communicate with them meaningfully. It made a tremendous difference in life.
What type of skills do people need when considering career in past life regression?
Oh, to potentially become a past life regressionist themselves. I think the skills that would best serve someone in that area is to get a good foundation in hypnotherapy first. People will often learn how to help people with things like relaxation, with weight loss, with smoking cessation. If they're really feeling called to and have good experiences themselves with their own past life regression sessions, they may find from that they're called to become a past life regressionist.
Wow. What would be a typical session somebody would experience with you?
Well, what we do is we set an intent for it, then just do our best to release expectations because each session is different. They're as unique as every person is. And sessions are really a reflection of their higher self, their soul, and their spirit guides and what's meant to come in. Because you can't read a book and say, oh, my session's going to be like that. You have to let it go and just trust that you're going to get what you most need, which may not match what you want. There's that discrepancy with what the soul needs and with what the ego might want.
What's been your experience with clients who may have a challenge tapping into seeing or hearing their higher self or really feeling anything?
That's a fantastic question. What we do is set up the session so that people understand there's many ways to hear and tap into this information and this knowledge, working to just relax. And that's why we do the breathing in the beginning to just get into our body and just get calm, let go of that outcome. The way the information will flow to them might be as images. Some people see it like a movie rolling out or like a TV program. Other people, as I gently ask them the questions, they more hear the answers. Other people just feel or know or sense. Some people smell. Some people will taste and they'll say, oh, this tastes really bitter. I just encourage them to share whatever they're experiencing. We'll just follow whatever's coming to them, however they process the information.
This is a great segue into Regression Healing 1. Share with us what led you to create this particular book.
You have to back up a step to what led to me offering that session to my former boyfriend, who I've shared so many lives with. He had some really severe physical pain. He had been a professional athlete and he had broken his neck. And when I asked him where he was on the pain scale that physical therapists and massage therapists and other medical practitioners use, 0 being no pain at all and 10 being the worst pain of your life, he said many days were around an 8. That's life limiting. He just wanted to be able to feel better, to be able to play recreational sports, and to be able to drive more comfortably. I offered to do a session for him because I knew he had had previous past life regression sessions with other practitioners. We talked it through and both said, is this appropriate? Is this good for both of us to consider doing this? Because it can be a little bit atypical when you're that close to someone to do a session. Typically surgeons don't operate on their own family, for good reasons. They refer to someone else. But we both felt and made the independent decision, yes, this is important and a good thing for us to do. And it turned out to be one of the most powerful sessions of my life.
Wendy, share a little bit about the Akashic Records.
I love the Akashic Records. I see it as this sacred storehouse of every life that we've lived and will live in the future. A lot of people are ready to take the next step in life, but they're not quite sure how to do it. Maybe they want to become an author for the first time. Perhaps they want to do some public speaking because they're really passionate and interested in a subject, but they have some fear around it and they'd like to release that fear and understand where it's coming from. Or they may want to be starting a business. More and more are finding the tools of what they've done before. It's like people go into the library very different ways. Some go straight to the librarian. Some jump straight into the stacks because they know where they're going. Others go jump into their favorite comfy chair by the light because they just know what they're going to read already. A lot of people say, oh, this is familiar. I've been here before. So it's just really, it's really fun to see the different approaches.
Share with us a little bit about this first experience, the chapter titled The Huntsman.
My goal with these sessions is to make them be very practical and to just do our best to have them improve now, which takes us back to, what was the intent we set at the beginning. It was an interesting life for him to experience. It was very solitary. There wasn't a lot going on, and he did have some interactions with one older gentleman that he was taking food to regularly. And it was pretty neat because he was able to identify who that person was in his life now. I really felt some joy of, oh my gosh, I know him. We're having another lifetime together again. He was able to contrast that lifetime to his current lifetime. He lives a very super busy, scheduled to overscheduled life now. He just was able to see the contrast of the choices made and the pros and cons of each.
What I found fascinating about The Huntsman was freedom of time and relaxation. I really liked that you said we have rest lives and we have reward lives. Share a little bit about that.
My belief is we incarnate many times, and I believe the purpose of that is for our soul to have experiences and to learn, because that allows us to progress. A rest life, which is how I would describe this life that he was having as the huntsman, is there's not a ton of challenges. There's not a lot of chaos. There's not a lot of tough lessons going on. So that's what I would describe as a rest life. And then a reward life, I would describe myself as being in a reward life right now. I feel very fortunate. I've been able to remove the veil and to be able to see the bigger picture, and I can easily connect with the divine. I can easily connect with my guides. I can easily go to the Akashic records and see the bigger picture, yet I can also be very grounded and practical of it's time to clean the house. It's time to, take care of day-to-day business. And that's pretty easy for me too. I really feel this is a reward life because I feel I'm able to help others, to reach back and to be able to help someone else. I mean, sure, they've got to work their own way. There's no one way. But to be able to have stuck authors get unstuck and to be able to just help people, heal and release that energy, it's a big deal. And that's a reward life for me.
Beautiful. Let's talk about the Lord High Mayor. What was it like to be in this experience?
It was really interesting to hear him go from that simple life as a huntsman into this political life in France. And I did not know the term Lord High Mayor. And I asked him immediately after session, do you know what a Lord High Mayor is? And he said, no, what are you talking about? I Googled it when I got home that day because I was really curious. Was that a term that was used? And that was the correct term in France in that time period that he described. So that was just a really cool validation for both of us that he was recalling very, very well. It was an interesting life because he wielded his power pretty lightly, pretty graciously. I mean, sure, there was a little bit of ego. It was kind of funny when I asked him about his shoes and to describe in the very beginning how he was dressed. And he pulled up a little bit and, assured me that his shoes were perfectly clean and in perfectly wonderful condition. And I was like, okay. But he was like so that character. And it was just so different than the huntsman. But he was also quite clear to explain to me, this is not a democracy, because I asked him that question. And he said, no, that's not what's going on here. So again, it was very specific and accurate for that time and place.
Let's talk about the World War II soldier.
I went in with my heart as wide open as I could because I think just the topic and the context of a world war, it's hard to process. It's just hard to take why we have engaged in so much war on this planet. I see Earth as the free will planet. It's time to pull up. It's time to raise our vibration and be in that place of abundance and of peace. But he went through what I think was a very typical experience as a teenager, for heaven's sakes. Being drafted, or perhaps he volunteered, we didn't get into that, but sent as a 19-year-old, an American sent over to Italy. I don't know a lot about the military. I just had to ask him really basic questions. I'm like, well, are you in the tank? And he's like, no, that's the tank crew. Only a few of them fit inside the tank. The rest of us are, walking, and I'm like, well, are you walking or are you running? I mean, you could hear from my questions, but he was so specific. I mean, he was really, really there, and he would explain how at times they would ride on the tanks and it wasn't comfortable. So they would try and sit on like a blanket or a canvas bag or their backpack or whatever they had with them to try and, soften it as they're on this hard metal tank going over, I'm sure, bumpy roads. Then he went through the death scene and explained how he had died there. He had this neck and shoulder and back pain, but he died in a pretty different way. It was a gut wound. So I was looking for, does this correlate to the other pain? Because I wanted to make sure we went back to The objective for the session was to just have more and more mobility in his body. I just gently helped him cross over, and he did very well with it. And I just make that very comfortable for people. I explain ahead, this is not going to be traumatic. You've left bodies many times before. It's just a vehicle for learning. I'm going to be right with you. Your guide's right with you. And just make sure there's no, regrets or unfinished business, because you want to tidy those up right away. And then we cross over to the light from there. And once we did that, we were able to reunite with his guide, and he was able to meet his higher self.
In terms of spirit guides and guardian angel, what's your take on the difference?
I see spirit guides as a generic term. Guardian angels can be a type of spirit guide. So I see guides as including angels, ascended masters, loved ones, our ancestors. Also, it can often include animals, because we have just beloved animals that have passed on. Or it might also be wild animals. We might really relate to wolf or bear or eagle or whatever. And those can also be spirit guides for us. And spirit guides can also, they don't have to be human. They can be benevolent life beings from another planet. I'm trying to avoid using the word aliens. I don't like the word aliens. Alien to who? We're alien to others that aren't similar to us. Other beings of light from other planets, other dimensions.
What happens when somebody hasn't particularly met their spirit guides?
A lot of people just haven't made that connection. I was one of those people. Once I heard the concept, I wanted to believe, but I just didn't know how to connect. We do a guided meditation at the beginning of each session, and it takes about 10 minutes. And they take a journey and walk up a hill. And at the top of the hill, they step out of a grove of trees into a clearing, and they meet their guide. And they're able to see and sense and hear their guide. So back to your question earlier about the different senses. They learn their guide's name, they get a message from their guide, and they receive a gift from their guide. And then we ask how to apply it to now. How do I use this in my life now? Sometimes it's immediately obvious, and sometimes it needs a little explanation.
In the chapter where you talk about reuniting with the spirit guides, you mentioned that they sometimes have a sense of humor. Or
Absolutely.
They can have, quote unquote, potty mouths. And I've also heard that Archangel Michael has a really interesting sense of humor. Share a little more about the personalities of the spirit guides that you've encountered.
Yes. I believe the guides have a rip-roaring sense of humor, because it's just one of the best ways to raise our vibration is to smile, to laugh. It just really changes our beingness and who we are to be able to do that. And that was what his guide did with him. The guide that came in was larger than life, literally 40 feet tall. He knew this guide. It was such a manly man moment. Just cussing and just having this amazing reunion. Because I did for a minute think, oh, should I edit this out? But it would have destroyed the authenticity. It would have diluted and watered down. It wouldn't have been honest with what his experience was. It's just a reflection of what each person most needs. This client was a professional athlete and a sportscaster. So it's the perfect guide for him. It was like private jokes. I felt like I was like in the men's locker room getting to hear the private jokes as the two of them had this reunion. And it's amazing every time. I feel privileged to get to see the variety, but underlying theme is sense of humor. Some of the guides will show up. Michael Newton talked about this in Journey of Souls, in these like scary costumes, scare people when they're first crossing over. And some people are like, whoa, what is that? And then they like pull off the mask and they're like, it's me. It's just to get us not to be rigid and like set in our ways. And that was what he talked about in the book, was this was just the best way to help him pull out of that body. Because he had just been a 19-year-old killed in World War II in Italy. And what do you make of that? And what did his guide say to him? You could still be alive today if you'd just been a better shot. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what a thing to say. But I mean, he laughed so long and so hard, I had to actually say, I think it's time for a bathroom break.
Yeah, it kept going over and over.
Yes.
The guy just kept saying this over and over.
He just kept goading him because that's their relationship and that's just what's right for him.
You mention in the book the experience of meeting higher self. Mm-hmm. What is the higher self?
I believe we all have a higher self. That's our soul. It's the best of us. When I first was learning and just really encompassing, what does this mean in my daily life, if anything? I then went through this period where I thought, oh, the higher self is the best part of me. And she's up with the light. She's up in heaven. She's up with the divine. I had that sort of relationship where my higher self wasn't in my body. And it wasn't necessarily easy for me to be my higher self every day because I was seeing us as very separate. And then I worked with a spiritual teacher who shared this simple practice that was so beneficial to me. And she said, if you would like to fully align with your higher self and more easily be the best of you every day, as you wake up in the morning, sit on the side of the bed, put your feet on the ground, and invite your higher self into your body through your crown chakra, through the top of your head. Say, please help me be my higher self today. And your higher self enjoys the physicality because now we get to have a body. That's my experience with the higher self and just being able to really fully align. And I see that as an important part of raising our vibration. And it makes life a lot easier and a lot more fun.
I would agree with you. In terms of the 3 past lives and meeting with the higher self, what were you able to pull from the experiences that your client was having in terms of the questions that he want answered?
His requests were to get pain relief and connect with his guides because he just did not know how to make that connection. He could sense them around him, particularly his father, but he just didn't know how to have the conversation and to get the support and get the wisdom. So those were some of his main questions, as well as to help shed some light on some other relationships that he had in his life that he wanted to improve. We just worked to pull the thread of the potentially hundreds, if not thousands of lives that you've had. Why did you experience these 3? And then how do we pull the thread through them to help more now? And then that's why we cross over to the light and ask for the greeter or for the guide to come in and just show us from a much higher plane where we're not in our human bodies and we're not in our human egos. How could we just be very peaceful and just find some better solution for him?
Within those solutions, share a little bit about the place of healing. What is it? And how often do people go to this place?
Not nearly often enough. We've all got this marvelous place of healing within us that we can go to. And it can be just as simple as meditating for 5 minutes, even if you've never meditated before. And you may find yourself going to a beautiful place in nature that you've been to before. Maybe you have a favorite beach or place in the woods or secret tree house or grandmom's kitchen, whatever it might be. Teaching people how to go to this healing temple, to visualizing it to the best of their ability. It's as simple as asking a series of colored healing lights to come in and to go to a specific place on the body. Just allow it to land and to notice the color or colors. Just notice what they feel or experience with them. Because when we heal the body in that way, we're healing our emotions, our mental body, we're healing all the various bodies as well as our aura. And if people feel that they can't do that on their own, they can certainly do it in a session with me. They can read it in the book, how to do it, and follow the steps from there. And they can also just ask before they go to sleep at night, take me to my healing temple.
That's wonderful.
Yes, yes. And it's great for people who, as I said, who don't know how to meditate or don't feel they have the time to meditate. You can also do it in the shower. I mean, there's just so many shortcuts. Just be, and just, have it naturally be part of who you are. It's just easier and more fun because you just have that component to it.
Great tip.
Oh,
I think that
wonderful.
was insightful information, so simple that we can just lay in bed and ask to go to the place of healing.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the number one things I have people tell me is that they didn't expect, is that they sleep better.
I see this as helping parents too. Parents with sleepless nights, because when you're a young parent, baby gets up many times a night. You could be feeling not well in your body. So this could be a really great tool or resource for
Absolutely.
new parents.
Absolutely.
When they're going to sleep.
Absolutely. To be able, I wish I had known that at that time, because I had my kids before. Because I would get into that place of, oh my gosh, it's only 2 hours until I have to get up. And then I would be just more exhausted and more stressed, rather than, oh, great, we took care of the baby, back to sleep, and just learn how to really relax on a dime so that your body can heal.
Yeah. What a great resource. Thank you. Right now, I'd like just take a moment to give our audience a trigger warning. We're going to talk about PTSD and trauma. If you are sensitive to post-traumatic stress disorder or trauma, you might want to fast forward the video to the next section. Let's get into now the suspect.
We experienced these 3 lives, crossed over to the light, and went through the healing temple. My reality check at the end of the healing temple is I said to his higher self or his guide, whomever I was speaking with at that moment, did we resolve it? Did we resolve the physical pain? And he very flatly said no. And that's highly unusual. So I asked the logical next question, well, can we? Are we able to do that today? And what would it take to do that? And he replied, we would need to go to the lifetime of origin where this pain originated. That's what merits the trigger warning. So thank you for giving that, Sheri. Was he needed to re-experience 2 very difficult endings to lives where he was tortured. And that was what was leading to his physical pain in the body now, because he had not been able to forgive the people involved. I believe our souls choose our lifetimes before we incarnate and plan them very carefully. So he then chose to incarnate with the 2 people who had tortured him when he was able to reframe. And for him to have started the session at an 8 on the pain scale, and at the end of it to tell me he was down to a 3. And that just made such a difference in his life. And he's been able to hold that healing and not have it go way back up. So it was a very profound healing, because he did such gutsy work. Imagine going back and revisiting lives like that. And it's what was right for him. And it's very unusual. I've only had this happen a couple times. It's a common concern that people have, and they'll say, oh, I don't want to do a past life regression because I'm too afraid of what I might find. What if things were too hard? Or what if I was this terrible person who hurt other people? So that's a common human fear and emotion that comes up. And what I'd like to explain is we have all been saints and sinners. We've all been the good person, the bad person, the rich person, the poor person. We've just all lived those lives. And we just have to forgive ourselves for them and forgive other people. And then life gets a lot better.
How does what you do with your clients in terms of past life regression help people who experience post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, or high levels of anxiety in their life due to traumatic events in their past current life?
Right. That's a great question. But getting people to be able to ground their energy and to clear their energy so they're only carrying their own energy, and then how to relax and bring in the support from their own intuition, their higher self, their soul, however that framework makes sense to them, as well as their guides. And then I just give people the tools. What do we need to let this go? To be able to move that PTSD out of their system. Sometimes it's truly instantaneous. It's just understanding what happened. They can let it go. Some people heal over days or weeks or months because there's a titration. You know, you can only accept so much healing if it's been very deep, very like childhood abuse, for instance. It can be very deep wounds from that in this lifetime, and we can find a mirror imprint to other lifetimes. So it's just pulling that thread and healing them all. So we're able to do that by being in just a very sacred place together.
You mentioned several times people coming into this life intentionally creating who you're going to meet in terms of people you have soul contracts with.
Yes.
Share a little bit about soul groups.
I believe that we have soul groups. Dr. Newton wrote about this in Journey of Souls, and it resonates highly for me and my experience as well as my clients. Every person that I've worked with has reported, yes, I do have this soul group of people that I work with many, many times, many, many lifetimes. So there's a concept of a primary soul group. Let's say there's an average of 5 to 20 people. I'm just giving kind of statistics based on a lot of studies that Dr. Brian Weiss did and Dr. Newton and others, and what a lot of my clients have seen. But there's also adjacent soul groups to us that, you know, we incarnate with many times, and we set up soul contracts so that we can progress and learn lessons.
With past life regression, do we have the ability to release trapped souls?
Yes, and it comes up in two ways. It comes up because people can find fractured parts of themselves and do a soul retrieval back into their own heart because it's a part of them that was too wounded from before, so they can become more whole again. A literal ghost of your own, like I found from colonial America. Or people find, sometimes in session, and this would be more rare, that there can be other ghosts, and they may realize that they're a ghost whisperer and that there's someone who can help walk ghosts to the light, you know, that are not them, that are, you know, because they may move into a house that just feels creepy to them, or they may be in a business and they don't like something in that building or that neighborhood, and they may get to the point where they just are sensing, they're sensing ghosts, they're sensing stuck energy. And some of them will say, okay, I think I'm called to do this. So then we'll check with their higher self and guides. Is this part of what they're meant to do?
Wendy, as we've been talking about Simon's adventures, what he needed for healing was forgiveness. So let's talk about forgiveness. And what I'd really like to know is, in the work that you do with past life regression, how does it help us to radically forgive?
The reason he needed to return to those lives was he needed to understand what had happened that was causing the pain. And when he was able to forgive the parties involved, that was what gave him the immense pain relief. Ho'oponopono prayer is the ancient Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, and it's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And that's just very, very powerful. That's on page 116 in the book. It's in the Forgiveness Healing Resource Guide at the end. It's just such a lightener. I mean, you can just really lighten your energy, because what he learned was forgiving the other people. It was a gift to himself. I mean, he learned he was setting himself free, and it doesn't mean you're condoning the behavior. Some, behavior is not okay, and it's whether it was ours or someone else's, but it means you're forgiving the person. It means you're forgiving that soul. And that's just really, really powerful. And that allows the cord cutting too, where you don't have these lower vibration chords of anger or hatred or resentment that just keep creeping in that you just can't get rid of.
Right. And you had mentioned if you do not get the lesson in a past life, the lesson repeats itself and it becomes stronger and stronger in future lives until we actually learn the lesson.
You're right on. My belief is we plan our lives before we incarnate and put a lot of thought, and our soul group helps us plan them because they're going to act it out with us. Those wise beings, those wise elders help us plan them out. And we then just act out this play, to use an analogy, or go back to school is another analogy. Here we are in Earth School. Some lessons are so difficult, you can't get them in a single lifetime. I mean, forgiveness, that's huge. That's a big one. You're very unlikely to master that. So you might get like a little aspect of it in one lifetime. And then you plan another life where you're working on a different aspect of it. So you're changing roles. So that's where the victim, becomes the perpetrator, and we switch roles, and just try things from all different points of views and all different perspectives until we fully master it. And usually I see self-forgiveness comes last. That seems to be graduating from that lesson, is when we learn to easily forgive ourselves and just say, oh, darn, I really would like a do-over on that. And just forgive yourself. You did the best you could, and let it go, and learn how you can do it better, and wake up fresh that next morning. Push that new day button. I used to have on my computer monitor, I had a sticker that said new day to just remind me, this is fresh. I'm not carrying the old stuff with me that doesn't serve me.
Wendy, this has been an amazing experience, and reading your book really opened my eyes in terms of soul group, the Akashic records, past life regression in general. What do you see as the success rate when someone does one or a few sessions with you in terms of attaining what it is that they're after?
Mm-hmm. I would say 95% or better are able to check off one or more of their wishes for the session. That we always get what we need, but we may not get what we want.
I definitely can understand that. If someone wanted to buy this book, where would they find it at?
Yes, it's on Amazon.com. Search by name for Wendy Rose Williams, or look up Regression Healing 1 under the book tab. It's also on Audible, so I did record it myself as an audiobook. So you'll find it those two places.
Wonderful. Who would be the ideal person who would pick this book up and read it?
Ideal reader just simply has an open mind and just wants to learn more about spirituality, wants to learn more about what past life regression can do and how it can be such a practical tool to improve your life now, to get to that place of ease and grace, and to bring in more peace, more harmonious relationships, get financial flow going, because it so often boils down to health, wealth, and harmonious relationships for most of the people I work with. So anyone wanting to improve those areas and hoping for some assistance, consider purchasing this book and request a phone appointment with me. I offer complimentary 15-minute phone appointments that people can request via my website. And my website's my full name, so wendyrosewilliams.com. And there's a Contact Me tab on there. And we can just talk one-on-one and see if I may be of service.
Excellent. And you have some upcoming events?
Yes, those are on my website. I'm going to be on Business Talk Radio Friday, November 29th, the day after Thanksgiving, at 12:48 Pacific. How's that for a specific time? It's a 12-minute slot from 12:48 to 1 p.m. So that'll be on my website. It's internet radio, so I'll have the link there. of how people can listen to that. And we'll be talking about how to enhance your intuition for greater success. So, because it's business talk radio. On December 5th, I'm going to have my next book is going to be published. It's a multi-author book, and the proceeds are benefiting various animal charities. It's called Heaven Sent. So that will be on Amazon starting on December 5th. And if people would like to purchase a copy directly through me, you can do that via my website. I'll get that set up. And if you purchase it directly through me, I'll be making a donation to the Doggone Seattle Rescue, which is a rescue that I volunteer with locally here in the Seattle area. And speaking of Doggone Seattle, I facilitate an event for them twice a month at Cairn Microbrewery in Kenmore, Washington. And the proceeds from that event go to the Doggone Seattle Rescue. And it's a really fun 2 hours where we bring in a lot of friendly dogs, and people just get to socialize and have a nice microbrew drink and go to the food truck and just enjoy being with the dogs at Cairn Brewing. And the tickets are available via Airbnb. And I've got information about that on my website. And on December 11th, I'm going to be at the Cedar Valley Grange from 10 in the morning until noon. I'm going to have a booth at the Business Among Moms, the BAM Linwood group. I just love that acronym. BAM just sounds like the fun group that it is. So people are invited to come join us there for some holiday cheer and get a little of their shopping done and learn about different services available too. January 2nd, so 2020, coming up so soon, I'm going to be at the Linwood Puget Sound building that evening, giving a talk at the Bluebird of Happiness meetup. And the talk is called E.T. Go Home. And it's my journey from abductions and some very unpleasant energy and memories to embracing being a starseed and just being very happy to have remembered my lives on other planets. And I just attract a lot of clients who need help sorting that out, because some tough stuff can come through, and then can also be some wonderful things. So just being able to sort out what's true and not true for that person, their own truth, is what that talk is about. And then the last one, January 13th, I'm going to be down in Sacramento at the IANDS monthly group meeting, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And there I'll be doing a group past life regression and doing the group healing temple exercise or meeting with the guides. I'm going to have the group take a vote, and we'll do one of the two. And I'll also be recapping what my near-death experience was like and the gifts that were in that and how it helped me.
It sounds like a very full schedule and a very enlightening schedule for those that will attend these upcoming events with you. Wendy, thank you so much for taking your time today to sit through this interview and talk about Regression Healing 1. I acknowledge you for the art with your words you put into this book. I highly recommend this book for anyone who is on a spiritual path of awakening. The way that you wrote and really simplified what regression healing was and how you took us through Simon's journey was beautiful. And I never really thought of what it's like to have a rest life or what it was like to have a reward life. Mm-hmm. I can really see your hypnotherapy coming through, and I really got a sense that you're really committed to understanding your client before you go into a session with them. Mm-hmm. The preparation work that you do to get ready for the session.
Yes.
I felt that in this story, in the book, and all throughout the book. I acknowledge you for providing a starting point for someone like myself, in that at the end of the book, you included tools and resources for the reader to go and do some self-exploration on key terms that you provided throughout the book that they may not have known. It helped me in understanding soul contracts. You expanded my knowledge on what a soulmate was. Multiple lives. And guess what? How is it that we can have 100 or so past lives and numerology is 1 through 12. And studying numerology, it only kind of encompasses like new lives if you're a 1 or a 10 or 11. I found myself questioning, like, how does it pick up all the other lives that we may have or may not have been in?
Right. There's much more to numerology in my belief system than the 1 through 12, because there's the master numbers of 11, 22, 33. So there's much more to it. And it's interesting you bring up numerology, because that was part of my awakening. And I started noticing 1111 on the clock, and 222 and 333. And then I started Googling those as angel numbers. So you can literally just Google whatever number you see that keeps repeating. And I like Joanne's Sacred Scribes. And that gave me a lot of information from my guides, because I didn't know how to connect in the beginning, because I hadn't learned how to meditate, and I hadn't learned to use oracle cards, and I hadn't learned how to muscle test. So those were some of the things that were how I broke through, of how can I really hear my own soul, my own higher self, my wisdom of my own soul, as well as my guides. So the numerology came into it, and I worked with a spiritual numerologist, and she was able to see some of the past lives that were holding me back. And she was able to identify my exact karma and the antidotes. And when I then worked that plan of, okay, how do I resolve, because I had a lot of heartbreaker karma, which meant I just did not have healthy, happy romances. They just did not sustain. And they were very, very heartbreaking, because I had inflicted heartbreak. So it was my time to balance up. So that's part of why the soulmate and I had that contract, for him to break my heart repeatedly, so that I could transmute it by really feeling that and being on the receiving end of it. So that helped a lot. And my other karma was for abusing power, was what the spiritual numerologist found. I was able to then, with what she shared with me of what had happened and what the antidotes were, I really, really worked it. And within about 6 months, I was very fortunate. I had cleared it. And that it allows you to up-level your vibration. When you get your higher self in your body, when you transmute your karma, and you're really learning your lessons, life gets a lot more fulfilling, a lot more joyful, a lot more fun, and a lot more easy. And my health just got better and better and better.
That's one of the things I like to say. My life is getting better and better every day.
Yes.
Thank you for this interview. I just have learned a ton in just 200 pages or so of this book.
I so appreciate it, Sheri, and I so appreciate people that are our listeners, and people that will tune in and just reach out from there. So thank you.